Hi, I'm Tara from the Marathon Mates. This week we are talking to our good friend Claudia Stevenson. Claudia is a vision impaired runner who is based in Melbourne, and on this episode, Claudia will help us understand what running means to her and the adventures it has taken her on around the world, including the New York and London marathons. Are you ready to run? Let's go.
Welcome to the thrilling world of the flying runner, brought to you by the Marathon Mates.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Flying Runner podcast, our 48th episode. Tim and I first met Claudia through our social media on the iFit community pages. Claudia is a regular member of the iFit community here in Australia and regularly shares her runs via this channel. After years of following one another, we finally caught up with each other about 12 months ago here in Brisbane at the New Farm Park Run. It was Claudia who also introduced us to Team Kerr. If you haven't heard of Team Kerr, you really do need to listen to our episode number 22. Tim and myself have really enjoyed following Claudia's adventures, and it was great to see her take on some massive challenges over the past little while. The first being to run the New York Marathon, and the second to run the London Marathon just a few short weeks ago. We are so happy to have her join us tonight. Firstly, Claudia, welcome to our show, and secondly, how have you pulled up after the London Marathon a few weeks ago?
Really well. I've had a great training program and have been doing fantastically well. I did the Great Ocean Road half last weekend and I'm feeling pretty good.
Wow, congratulations. You are really into it, aren't you? So that's great. So thanks, Claudia. Now, before we go any further, I better introduce my co-host, Tim and Tony. Guys, how are you going? What is it now, 5 weeks to Gold Coast Marathon? Is that about right?
6, 5 and a half, or something like that.
Oh, I don't know.
Not long enough.
5 weeks from when this episode drops, more or less. So
that's true and correct.
Yeah, so I'll start first, Tony. So thanks, Tara. Welcome to the show, Claudia. It's been good to get you on. For me, I guess training continues on. I didn't do much training last week after the GC30. I had as I said, I think last week I had a bit of a tight calf, so I eased back on the training load, still kept up the weights, gave Parkrun a miss, which I'll talk about shortly, and went out yesterday for a run and did 26 kilometers in a training run. Pretty easy for me, around that 5:55 pace, so I was comfortable with that, and was running with our good friend, our marathon mate, Mary. So big shout out to Mary for joining me on the run yesterday. And of course, as usual, bump into a couple of our regular listeners, Brian and Monica, and our former guest on the show, Terry Frew, who's only a couple of weeks now short of Comrades. I think next week he'll fly out for Comrades. So, yeah. How about you, Tony?
Yeah, well, I had a very quiet week last week, not because of too many injuries or anything. It's just that I was just too busy at work trying to get everything through. So sometimes that happens. So there was a couple of nights I wanted to get out for a run, but instead I was working with clients. So makes it a little bit challenging. But I got out there on Saturday. I set a goal. It was my long run. I wanted to do 18K. And it was a really interesting 18K because it was just interesting. You know, I started really comfortably, thought it was a nice, easy run, looked at my times again, and I'm just ticking over just low sixes. And I'm going, oh no, where's this going to go? So after 5, I was 31 minutes, which is just becoming the norm now.
Yep.
I then ticked over the 10 in a new PB, and I'm thinking, this is going to hurt coming home. And it did. But so I've really got to understand these easy run concept, because I was thinking while I was running, everyone calls them easy runs. I've never had an easy run, and so so hence the reason why there's an out and back episode on Friday that says what to do when your easy run ain't easy, because it wasn't easy. But I got the time that I wanted to, but obviously the back 8 was a little bit slower than the first 10. So I've just got to work that through. But yeah, outside of that, a little bit of irritation around the Achilles, but once I unlock the ankle again after I've run, it tends to go away pretty quickly. So yeah, all good.
Cool. And Tara, for our people online who can see, there's a change to you. So what's happened to you? And why didn't we do parkrun on Saturday?
So I went for my easy run on Friday with Patrick. As
That's
some
our
of you
son.
may know, sorry, our son, yes. Some of you may know he's training for the Gold Coast Half. So I went out to do a run with him, and 1.5 Ks in, stupidly found something that I could trip over and went face first into the concrete. Cleaned up the blood and kept going, but my easy run wasn't quite as easily as I thought it was going to be. But yeah, for those looking online, I do have some good bruising on my chin, and yeah, it is what it is. I'm alive. There's nothing broken. We're all good, so it's okay. Yeah, anyway, that's why we didn't do parkrun on Saturday, because I thought I'd better not actually go out and run, just in case I've got concussion or something stupid. I thought I'd just take it easy, and that's why Tim was running by himself on Sunday. So yeah, look, if it's an excuse to stop and have sleeping for a couple of days, I'm happy to keep falling over every Friday, to be honest. So yeah.
Not if you look like that, Tara.
And how are you going? Still love me, thanks, Tim.
Yeah, still love you, even if you look like that.
And did you do parkrun the weekend, Claudia?
Yeah, I did. I went to Albert, Melbourne, and I ran solo, but I started close to the front of the pack, and because I just thought, oh well, I'm by myself, and people can just run past me, and so yeah, I had a really lovely run. Missed out on a lot of the chaos, and came close to doing a PB. Still far away, but I was sub 30, and I was really happy, and I wasn't dying, so it was great.
Well
Yeah,
done.
I like Albert.
So can you do Albert Parkrun by yourself because you know that course so well? Is that why you're happy?
Yeah, it's I sort of know all the twists and divots and turns, and yeah.
Yep. Oh, that's all right. I'm just putting in to go, oh, that's game.
It's just one continuous left, and if you stay on
exactly,
the
and if I go too far left, you end up in the water.
Yep. And if you don't hear the crunching of gravel under your feet, then you're on the grass, and then you're off the course. Yeah.
And that's the other really good thing, is actually you can follow people really quite easily. So both, I can see some things visually, but also I can hear people. So it is a really nice course to do.
Yep.
Excellent. And everyone would know you there as well, which would be very nice.
Yeah. Achilles is really well known there, so it's lovely actually.
Oh, that's wonderful. Excellent.
For our overseas listeners, Albert Park is actually where the F1 track is in Melbourne. So it's right in the middle of the F1
Melbourne
track.
Marathon around there as well.
And one of the larger park runs in Australia.
Yep, correct. It's a good course.
Well, let's do the news quickly, and then we can have a chat to Claudia about what we're actually here to talk about. Okay, Tim, what's been happening around the world this week in our news for running?
Thanks, Tara. So in the last week or so, World Athletics has come out and announced that all gold medal winners at the Paris Olympics in track and field will be winning not only a gold medal, but also $50,000 for each gold medal that they win. There is no prize money to silver or bronze. So once upon a time, in a little while past, the Olympics were purely amateur, but it appears that becoming more and more professional. And this is the first time I've heard of a sport issuing cash for gold medal winners. The IOC president has come out in the last week or so saying that he's not happy and believes that the money should be funneled down to the development of the sport. So there's about 48 events that equates to about $2.4 million US that will be issued out by World Athletics. And if you're in a relay team, the $50,000 will be divided up between the people in the relay team who competed in the relay. And World Athletics has come out this week saying, well, they already distribute the majority of their Olympic broadcast revenue to member federations through their Grants for Growth projects, and believe that it's a reward for all gold medalists in addition to the gold medal. But I think it's a little bit average. I think it should probably not go to the gold medalists. For me personally, I think that they're generally well supported by winning a gold medal. You win a gold medal in the Olympics in track and field, and you're going to get sponsors. You're going to get attention from your own country and your own federations, and generally be able to use it for some time, I would have thought, to make some money. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Tony?
I'm neither way, to be honest. I think it's a great initiative for those people that are going to win, and probably a little bit of an additional incentive. But I certainly understand the argument about using the funds could be utilised better. So I sort of, can I sit on the fence, Tim? So
you can sit on the fence.
That's where I want to be.
It's not comfortable sitting on the fence, but you can sit on the fence. That's okay.
I'm happy
Tara,
to
what do
get
you reckon?
I'm fully for athletes getting rewarded for what they do, absolutely. But as you said, the Olympics are supposed to be an amateur sport. They're not there as a you're not getting paid like you would if you were, say, playing basketball for the Chicago Bulls or something like that. This is supposed to be just a amateur sport thing. But yeah, I'm a bit like Tony. They deserve what they get, but should the silver and gold and the bronze get something? I'm not sure. There's a lot of money that goes into that training and to get yourself over there as well. So if you don't have that sponsorship beforehand, it can cover those costs, I guess. What's your thoughts, Claudia?
I'd like to know if it extends to the para athletes.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm not sure, because that would come out of a different revenue, I would imagine, and I don't think that the World Athletics gets a huge broadcast rights revenue out of that. So it would be a shame if it's not. It should be equal. I don't know. I'll do some research and have a look.
Yeah, London paid the para athletes this year.
Okay. Yeah.
Was that the same amount that the able-bodied or like excellent. That's fantastic, and that's how it should be too, because there's just as much effort, if not more, that goes into that. So I like that.
I'll tell you what, I'll do some more research over the next week, and I'll find out, and I'll report back next week. All right. It was pretty quiet this week in the news of marathonings, but I did find another marathon out there that is one to put on your bucket list. It's the Victoria Falls Marathon in Southern Africa, held in Zimbabwe. This year, the race will be held on the 6th for the 16th year in a row, and it will be held on July 7th. So, sorry, we can't make it this year. We've got Gold Coast Marathon that weekend. But the news for the Victoria Falls Marathon is that they've seen a huge surge in participation numbers, pretty much like every marathon around the world at the moment. They'll get about 5,500 runners with many of the countries around the globe represented. In fact, last year they had more than 42 different countries represented at that marathon. They like to promote it as the happiest marathon on earth, and it has a backdrop of the mighty Zambezi River and the Victoria Falls. Looking at the videos, it looks pretty awesome to watch. So it's definitely one I think we'd look at putting on the bucket list. You start and finish at the town of Victoria Falls. You run over a bridge with the mighty falls below you on one side, and you get to feel the mist from the falls come up over you as you're running it. For you, Tara, there's lots of animals on the course that you get to see, but don't be too worried. They do have more than 25 rangers out on course who are there to keep an eye out for those animals and make sure they don't attack you along the way. But it looks pretty good, pretty awesome, and definitely one, as I said, that they're promoting at the moment that I've seen. Definitely one with huge interest, huge surge in numbers, and the other special thing about it is if you run the marathon or the half marathon, it actually, for a section of it, crosses into Zambia. So you actually do cross international borders as part of the run. So Be interesting to do one day. So that's just another one to put on the bucket list. And I did mention Terry Frew before, seeing that he's about to go off and do Comrades in about a week or two's time. So just a quick shout out to our good mates Jen Kellett and Terry Frew, who've both been on this show as guests. Over the next week or so, they'll start to make their way over to the Comrades Marathon in South Africa. Apparently, it's the shortest distance ever this year. I think they said it's about 84 or 85 kilometers in distance, and it's the shortest it's ever been. But it is all uphill the whole way. So both of them are looking fighting fit. When we caught up with them last week, both of them are excited to get over there and have a crack. And seeing Terry on the weekend, he's looking fit and ready to go, albeit he's still got a problem with that knee, but he's working his way through it. So, but that's the news I've got this week.
So, Tim, just a quick question. Why is it the shortest it's ever been?
It deviates every year depending on roadworks and other things along the way and detours. And this year, I think there's a set of roadworks in the way that means they have to detour along a slightly different route, which brings it in a little bit shorter than the sort of traditional 90 kilometres. So my suggestion would be for Terry or Jen that if they get to 84 or 85 kilometres, they should probably just continue on and do the last 5 or 6 just to say they've run that far. Make it count.
It's like doing a 42k training run without the 0.2, isn't it, Tim?
Correct. A 42 training run, it just doesn't make sense. You got to round it off to the 0.2.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Tim. All right. So for the part that we're actually here for, well, the part that I'm here for anyway, and I want to have a chat to Claudia. Claudia, as we always do, we're going to kick off with some questions. Tony and Tim will jump in as well. You're all good with that? Sure. Just yell out and we'll go from there. So that sounds good. So the first question that I've got, as we said earlier, you're vision impaired, and we know you use a variety of aids, including your dog Poppy, to help you get around. Can you explain to our listeners how challenging it can be to maintain a healthy lifestyle through running whilst vision impaired?
Yeah, I think actually just how hard it is to maintain a healthy lifestyle when you've got low vision. So, access to information is really hard. So, finding good information about nutrition can be really difficult. Reading product information on the shelves, if you can't see it, how do you get nutrition information? How do you work out, how much sugar's in something? Can be really, really challenging, let alone being physically active. So there's not a lot of activities that you can do just by yourself. So, even walking, for example, when you're walking by yourself, you're having to keep up with where you are, what obstacles you might be feeling, with your cane, or, what your dog's telling you, or things like that. So it's really difficult to just go for a walk for pleasure, unless, of course, you're with somebody else. And then, of course, then it's always like, okay, having to ask somebody for assistance, having to actually, work out how to get to wherever you're meeting somebody. It's just a lot more challenging. And and also a lot of the sports, well, it goes back to childhood. It can be really difficult to be involved in team sports at school if you can't see. So what do you do when everyone else is doing PE class? Often people just opt out, or aren't given anything else to do. So, often it can be really, you get sort of opted out right from an early age. So a lot of the blind sports aren't particularly active. There's tennis now, and goalball is active. But that's, goalball's not a sport for everybody. And tennis it's still, there's not, for people with really low vision, tennis is still not the same as sighted tennis. So yeah, it can be really, really challenging trying to be fit. So yeah, I'm really, it took me a long time to get to running, and I wouldn't be running without Achilles. So yeah.
And I guess, as you were just saying as well, when you're going for your walks and stuff like that, it's not only just trying to find somebody that you will come for a walk when you want to go for a walk, but it's also a case that you could be having this really nice conversation with them, and then you're getting interrupted constantly because they're like, step down here, or there's you're constantly having an interrupted conversation because they're guiding you almost at the same time, I'm assuming. Is that correct?
Less so for walking, because there's that stuff can happen. You can pick up a lot more intuitively when you're holding on to someone physically. You can feel a lot more of their body movements, and when you get used to being with somebody, they don't always need to say step up or step down. Sometimes they do, but a lot more can be done just through the feeling of someone's body. Whereas when you start increasing the pace with running, you do have to be a lot more verbal, because everything has to happen that bit quickly, and also people need that time to preempt what's going to happen next, because if suddenly you're now stepping down into space, you do need some time before that happens, I suppose.
Yeah, otherwise you end up like me with a face that looks like this. And I'm not even visually impaired, and I've done this to myself, so I can only imagine how hard it would be. So, Tony, you've got a question for Claudia as well.
Yeah, Claudia,
you
talked about challenges, and it's probably in everything that you do, but I can't even fathom what it must be like having to run with a guide runner. Where I just get out of bed, and if I feel like it, or if I don't feel like it, I'll go for a run or not go for a run. There must be a lot of planning that you have to put into when you run, how often you run, or just getting out for a run. I mean, walk me through some of the challenges that you have with the planning around your running.
I'll start by the positives, because we can get stuck on the doom and gloom side of it, because it is a pain in the neck often. It can be a real pain in the neck, but there's always accountability, right? I'm making an arrangement. I've got to turn up there. So, those mornings when you wake up and you go, oh my golly, I really can't be bothered, I've got someone waiting for me, and vice versa for them. So, it is really great in that regard, because, you do have to actually, stick to your guns and actually go and do the run that you've planned to do.
You can't take the easy option, no.
So it has got some positives in that regard. But, also, people come to vision loss at different times of their lives. So, I've been lucky in the fact that I was born with my vision impairment. So, I'm pretty used to it, and I've been able to come to acceptance of asking for help over time. Whereas for people whose vision loss is a bit more recent, just even having to reach out to someone and ask them for assistance can be really challenging. And that fear of being knocked back, someone saying, I'm sorry, I don't have the time this week. Or, even making it hard, like, if they can't come and pick you up, or, and you've got to get somewhere at a really early time and public transport's not running, or you've got to catch a cab somewhere, and then that's putting an increased expense, and not to say that, people have to offer rides all the time, absolutely not. But it can feel pretty daunting when it gets to be really hard work having to ask for assistance all the time. It was the reason that I actually got my treadmill was during lockdown, of course. I lost the ability to be able to run with a guide because, I come from Victoria, worst lockdown state in the world. That was one of the things that was the hardest, was that I lost the ability to be able to run. But it opened up this world of being able to run by myself whenever I want on my treadmill, regardless of the weather. In some ways, actually, it's been fantastic. So, it wasn't something that I'd ever really considered before that. Like, I'd always just sort of attached running means running with somebody else. So, being able to run on a treadmill has been great as well.
Excellent.
Yeah, fantastic. And that's how we met you,
That's
obviously, through
right.
that community that we're in with iFit. So,
Yeah.
when you do run, you've mentioned Achilles. Achilles is the international association out there that provides guide runners for vision impaired people like yourself. I've had a look at the stats. I've had a look at their website, and to date, Achilles International has served more than 150,000 vision impaired runners from around
And
62. Yep,
and runners of all disabilities. So Achilles
correct.
International is much broader than just vision.
Yep, it's everything. And then, on top of that, they've got 62 different chapters around the world. And the survey results that they've got is 80% of Achilles runners report increases in well-being and self-confidence. So exactly what you're saying, to get out there and run and provide you with that self-confidence and ability to be fit and healthy and increase your health and well-being bit. But what does an association like Achilles mean to you? I guess it's pretty much that bit that gives you everything you need to be able to get out there and do the races and do the things you do, isn't it?
Yeah, I think for me, I was quite nervous when I saw Achilles was starting because a lot of people. So it was being started by a sighted person, and a lot of sighted people get into the world of disability with that real sort of charity model in their head. They've got to look after the poor bloody blind. Poor things. We need to help them. It's the reality. It's how things have happened for a very long time. And so I was really hesitant because I was like, oh yeah, this could be a complete, terrible thing. So I was a bit hesitant. I held off for a while. It was also starting a long way away from where I was living, and I also wasn't particularly a runner at that stage. I was still very much at the start of my running journey, and it sort of sparked that idea that actually I really wanted to try this running thing. I can't remember. It was way back in the mists of time, about 8 years ago, I think. And yeah, so then I finally I started just attending. I think I started with like Run Melbourne or something like that. I attended an event before I even went to a training session. And I also started getting some support at park to be able to do park run. So that was a real game changer for me. That was just brilliant. But it's just connected. The aim of Achilles is really to try and connect us with the running community, and to get us involved in events and mainstream events and mainstream running communities. And
Yep.
we've got one of our members who's like doing amazing things in the athletics field now. Like he's just brilliant. And we've got another guy who's just made connections in his local community, and we barely see him because he lives out sort of a couple of hours out of Melbourne, or an hour and a half out of
Yep.
Melbourne. And he's just getting on in his community. He still touches base with us, and we did some training at his local park run to train up his local running club, and now he's just connected up with them, and it's fantastic. Like, that's what I love so much about
Yep.
Achilles is. And then it also connects us globally to this fantastic network of people. So I got a guide runner from London to run with me at the London Marathon, and I it's just
It's
brilliant.
awesome. Yeah. Yeah, I like that concept where it doesn't matter where you are in the world, you can always connect up with somebody who's willing to stick their hand up and almost like sacrifice their run to guide you,
Correct.
or vision impaired runners, or even disabled runners through a race. And
Yeah.
I think that's just a fantastic concept. And from what I've seen, only as an outsider at the various park runs and races I've seen around the world, it's always they're always happy people that want to volunteer and give up their time for Achilles. So
Yeah,
um,
absolutely. It's my
yeah,
little bugbear is that the guide runners are not recognised properly by the major marathons, so they don't get a time. They're not
what?
running at their time. Yep, they don't get a time.
Oh,
It's not recognised as a world. They won't get it as part of their Abbott's World Majors.
Yeah, that's crazy because they've done the distance, they've run the
They've
race.
done the distance. They're
Um,
not doing it at their pace. They're
yep,
likely doing it at a slower pace so that they can actually guide.
yep,
So they could actually do better than what they're doing. Ugh,
correct.
makes me
And
grumpy.
it's no different than me guiding Tara home through Boston, or London, or Tokyo, or Berlin.
which is very,
um,
very common. So
yeah,
yes, I
so
was
I
wondering,
guess.
Claudia should be guiding me home. So, yes.
So I guess that's something I guess all runners should note, that where we can, we should make that well known out there.
Yeah,
in
if
the
anyone
communities.
has ins with those, those marathons.
Yeah, I strongly believe they should count. At the end of the day, they've run the distance, they've done the time, they've run it with somebody, and they've given up a little bit of their own. So these
And they're
events
usually
talk about.
self-funding. There's
Correct.
they're not usually paid by the athlete to get there. So it's
Yep.
pretty huge.
It's crazy.
Absolutely. And I mean, I know that how much of a world that it has opened up for you to be able to connect with people that are visually able to see as well. So you feel like you're running as a person, like as you were saying earlier with Park Run, you can run that by yourself and feel the same way that Tim and I would feel as if we were running as well. And that's thanks to Achilles, because you've now been able to learn that course. You've done what you need to do. But in saying that, we've actually been in races before where we have seen people that don't give way to Achilles runners. I mean, you guys wear bright yellow shirts. Yeah, I mean, one of the marathons I was in, and I think it was Melbourne Marathon, there was 3 Achilles guides with one runner because he had no sight at all. So there was a person in front of him picking up sticks and throwing things around, a person on each side of him, and yelling out, "Move way, there's a sighted, a visually impaired runner." And there were still people in the way. Like, it's as bad as staying in the way of an ambulance when they want to get through. Do you know what I mean? It's not like you can just pull up all of a sudden and say, "Oh, I can see that there's a person in front of me." So do you encounter that a lot yourself?
Yeah, it's really challenging. Everyone's running their own race. It's when you're in the zone, you can just chill out. And a lot of people are wearing headphones. They're not always wearing like bone conduction headphones, so they've often got music in their ears. It's challenging, but a lot of people just don't have any etiquette, so they don't pull over to the left if they're going to stop. Running as a guide team, it's like a caravan or a bus. We don't have the ability to brake really suddenly, because my guide has to say to me, "Stop," before I can stop. So yeah, if people can just at least use bone conduction headphones so they can hear, please, because it's really important that they can hear race instructions as well. If an ambulance is coming, like Great Ocean Road this weekend was like horrendous. There was ambulances coming down the road because someone had an accident, and people were just not getting out of the way because they just had no concept that, like, I was just like, honestly. It is really challenging. And I mean, I think I've certainly noticed the difference about places where Achilles is really present, because, like running around the tan, everyone knows our yellow t-shirts, what it means. But, in places where Achilles isn't as present, you do have to do a bit of education about what that means. So often, at Park Run, for example, if I'm going to a smaller park run, I'll just go up to the run director and say, is it okay if you just make an announcement to let people know that I'm going to be on course today? Because often people just don't know and they just don't think. So, but please just don't wear headphones. Wear bone conduction ones.
I think that could be a whole episode for us on runners etiquette, not just for visually impaired people, but for just everybody in general. So that, yes, I think that might be a nice episode.
Don't worry, Tara. The episode's coming. I've got it.
Okay.
I'll have to make sure my wife listens to that one. So, all right. So, Claudia, let's talk New York because I loved running New York in 2018, and so excited to be running it again this year. And no doubt you still feel the buzz. You ran it last year in a time of 4:57, and
whoa, that is awesome.
Which is awesome. So just a couple of things. So there's obviously a buzz running New York. You can feel the crowds. You can hear the crowds. But first up, I suppose the process of getting a guide runner for something like New York, and then the navigation of the start villages before you would be challenging enough. I'm guessing it's an undertaking in itself most of the time. But then I want you to share that experience of running New York for me.
Yeah. Well, can I just say this is one time where Achilles just really came to the fore. We were treated like rock stars. We had our own little pen where we went, and there was
Wow.
like food, disabled porta potties for us. Like it was like that alone was like worth everything. It was like, I don't care.
Absolutely.
You can call me anything. I don't care what you call me. I'm happy to be here. You know, like yeah, it's actually really fascinating now that I've been able to compare New York and London. Yeah, like New York, we got I was allowed 2 guides, so I could have one as a bulldozer, so that person to sort of alert people in front of us that we were coming, and like sort of try and give them the heads up, and then a guide to run beside me and sort of tell me all of the stuff like lift your feet up, or come left, come right, whatever it was. So
Sorry, can I just guess, was Knox Robinson your bulldozer?
yeah, he was. Yeah, and he just skipped the whole thing. Actually, skipped most of it backwards.
Yeah.
So
for those who don't know, Knox is a New York native. Lived there most of his life. He's very loud. He's a personal trainer on iFit, and one of these people that has run New York, I think, probably 15 times or something like that. And he's well known in New York as sort of a celebrity PT trainer. So to get him as your guide, pretty big score, let alone a bulldozer. He would have just been clearing everyone out of the way.
Oh my, he was so funny. He was like running up ahead and saying hi to people. He knew everyone on course. Like it was so fun to be with. It was just brilliant. Yeah, it was really great. But yeah, he just made it look so easy because he could have danced backwards, and I'm struggling along, and he's like, yeah, this is great, whoa. Yeah. So in London we had none of that. Achilles is not quite as well known over there, and here and even in the States, I sort of feel that most people with disabilities will actually sort of be part of Achilles, whereas in the UK there seems to be lots of different organisations or lots of different people who are blind just running on their own, or with other organisations, and so there wasn't that mass of people, with Achilles, wearing Achilles. There wasn't that huge sort of presence, I think, in London, and London only gave us one guide, and that was super tough. Super tough, and no special start line, no special nothing. So it was a very different experience.
So you're out in the grass paddock.
In the grass paddock with everyone else.
Red or blue?
I was red. I was a long way red in the very back of red. Yeah. Keep going back. Yeah.
And just ran behind them. They would have bulldozed the way through for you.
I know, but they were in they were in a special start wave way up the front because they're special.
Yeah. So are you? Come on.
Not as special as they are. Yeah.
So memories of the crowd at New York, Claudia?
Oh, yeah. I learnt a lot about myself in that race. I learnt that I do not get my energy from crowds. Yeah. And having Knox as my bulldozer, oh my golly, he was just revving up the crowd the whole way, like, yeah, bring it on, come on, like everyone. And I was like, mate, just like, I just don't, can you just be quiet? It was like really tough. I was like, everyone was telling me about the quiet bridges, and I'm like, yeah, bring them on. Where are they? Where are the quiet bridges? I was not prepared for the level of sound, just constantly, and just people lining both sides of the street, and hooters, and
cowbells, and
So does that then interrupt your running and your cadence and your ability to sort of focus and concentrate on the things that are important, the sound that you need to hear of your feet and other people's feet around you and all that sort of stuff?
yeah, and even my guide speaking to me, just because people were so loud. So yeah, this time I pre-warned my guide that I might be grabbing onto him when it got noisy, because I just couldn't take in any more sound, because if he was trying to give me any directions, I just couldn't process it. My brain was just in overload. Like I'm not neurodivergent, and like I had that insight into what somebody's life must be, in that sort of, it's just
Yeah.
huge.
I know somewhat what you mean. Somewhat. I can't put it in this true perspective, but when we do the big majors, we have our aftershocks on, our bone conducting headphones. I generally don't listen to much music when I'm running because I just can't hear it. And even if I turn it right up, it's no point because the crowds are so loud. So it does take away all those things that you're used to, I guess.
Yeah, and so I was much better prepared for London, and I don't think London was as loud. It was still really loud.
Cuddy Sark, Tower Bridge.
Yeah, it was loud, but
Yep.
no, I just didn't feel it was quite as dense as New York. I felt that there was a lot more gaps between the people. I don't know. Maybe I was just better prepared because I coped with it a lot better, but I also had those strategies in place that I was just going to hang on, and then I didn't have to worry, because I was getting all the feedback through my guide's bodies. So
the Jewish Quarter would have been nice as a bit of a peaceful section, I guess, for you in New York.
Yeah, that wasn't long enough. I could have coped with about 42 k's of that. That would have been great.
Yeah. And then
Just
you
a
end
nice
up
200 meters at the end, everyone going, yay, well done. It would have been fine.
and then you end up going down Bedford Avenue where all the pubs and bars are, and there's people crowding out in the streets. I could just imagine what that was like. So
It was really overwhelming. I just wasn't prepared for it because no other race is like that. Like people aren't like that in Australia.
True.
So I'm in awe of you, Claudia, because you do all this. You travel the world. You go to these big events, and I know how it is traveling. We all know how it is. Traveling doesn't always go to plan. Gates at airports get changed at last minute. Baggage gets lost or put on the wrong carousel or taken off the carousel and dumped onto the ground near the carousel. Trying to find, taxis, trains, all that sort of stuff. It's always challenging for us. It must be even more challenging for you. Now, do you travel with Poppy, your dog, or do you leave Poppy at home?
So internationally, it's a bit challenging to get back into Australia with your dog.
Quarantine.
So I just can never be bothered anymore. I did it once with my first dog. In fact, I did it a couple of times with my first dog, but after that, I'm like, it's just too much hard work, especially for such short periods of time. It's like, just not worth it. It's not worth it on the dog. Like, it's quite taxing on them. So I just take my trusty cane and I seek assistance. So, most airports have assistance now, so you can just book meet and assist. Sometimes you get pushed into a wheelchair, which is so funny. I'm like, I can walk, I can run. I've just run a marathon. I don't actually need the wheelchair, but so it's just not worth the argument anymore. So it used to be I tried to put my suitcases or my bags or whatever onto the wheelchair and just hold the handle and get them to guide me, but I couldn't even be bothered having that argument last time. I was just like, oh well, I'll just get the ride through the airport. And actually the distance that we had to cover in Dubai, it's kind of like, actually I'm probably okay with this.
That's a long walk, isn't it? And then down the escalator or down the
lift and on the train and I don't know where else.
It's a big one.
And then like technology's come such a long way. It helps so much. So using like Google Maps, for example, you can get all the public transport directions, and there's lots of great apps now that are so helpful to travel. And I'm a very good traveler. It was my job for a very long time, teaching other people who are blind or have low vision how to get around safely. So if I can't put into practice what I taught, there's a bit of a problem. So I actually don't mind traveling so much, and you're just prepared for those things to happen. When I rocked up at my hotel in London, they didn't have a room for me, and it was like midnight. And then
Oh wow.
they did have a room, and except that it turned out that it had somebody else inside it.
Oh, jeez.
So yeah, small things. But yeah, there was the big storms in Dubai, and I almost we landed in Dubai, and it was we almost didn't take off again, but luckily we didn't. We were fine. But then one of the other people from Achilles who was coming over to London, they got delayed, and then their bags didn't reach them until they got home in Melbourne after about 3 or 4 more weeks traveling. So I just have been pretty lucky. I do all the stuff like, carry my marathon gear in my hand luggage, anything that I can't do without. Most of my underpants I carry in my hand luggage too, because I think I can buy everything else, but I don't want to be buying undies.
Yeah.
Claudia, I must say, I am probably the worst traveller in the world, and anybody who knows me,
She is.
am I true? It's like ask Tony, ask anyone who's travelled with me. They will be just like, how the hell do you even manage to get your shoes on, let alone get across the world? And in all honesty, it's because of Tim. So I am in super awe of you, because I would just be like, I would probably still be left in Boston. Well, actually, I probably wouldn't have even got to Boston to start with. So I'm really more. But you're going to be travelling. Are you coming up for Gold Coast Marathon weekend as well? Excellent. So we'll get to see you there. But what's your favourite Australia? Because we've talked about London and New York, and obviously New York was probably your favourite out of the two of them.
No, London.
London. Okay.
Oh my God,
yeah.
London by far.
Okay.
Sorry, New
Yeah.
York. I found you boring, actually.
Ouch.
I must admit, I love London. London to me was, but I haven't done New York yet. So
Come on. I
Yeah.
mean, there was the Cutty Sark, there was Tower Bridge, there was the Shard. You ran up to Big Ben and you turned right, and then you were at the Palace.
yeah. Absolutely.
New York,
Um, Lots to like about London, but New York's still the best. Sorry, Gloria.
Each to their own.
Yep.
So what other events have you done, Claudia? Other marathons and other races?
So I've only done, I did Sydney as my first sort of marathon. I did it as my warm up to New York. So I don't sort of want to say it was my first, but it was my first. So don't discount it. But New York was my first, really, truly. Yeah. So yeah, and then I've just done lots of other stuff. Lots of halves, lots of other stuff over time. I just did Great Ocean Road, and actually, I think that's probably my favourite half that I've ever done.
That's an ultra half, isn't it? Is that
Yeah,
more
23.
than 21?
Yeah, 23.
23. Yeah, it's an ultra half.
I keep forgetting that it's 23, and I keep saying, "Oh yeah, I just did the half." Oh no, hang on, that's right, it's 23. But yeah,
And you're coming
Every
up to
kilometre counts.
That's right. You're coming up to Gold Coast. What are you doing at Gold Coast this year?
I'm doing the double.
Oh, yes! Woo! Excellent. Well, I would
Feeling
love to
quite
say,
crazy about it, actually. I'm like, what on earth am I doing? Yeah.
No,
I want the 3 medals. I only run for bling.
Me too. I would love to say I could keep up with you, but there would be not a chance in any way, shape, or form that I will be keeping up with you the way that you run. So
No way. I'm going to be so slow, because I am so not ready for that double distance. Like, oh my golly. I mean, I know I've still got 5 or 6 weeks. We'll be fine, but
You'll
I'm
be
not
right.
planning to do anything fast.
No, absolutely. So
No.
I just have to get to the end to get the medal.
It's just a challenge, and that's all we say to people. It's not about times. The challenge of doing the double is about the challenge. It's about completing both in the cutoffs. It's nothing more than that.
It'll be
finish
fine.
times, not finish times, is my saying.
Correct, exactly right. And, particularly that marathon, they will have that last pacer behind me going, come on, hurry up. You are going to be kicked off the course.
No, that'll be me.
Okay, we'll be together.
Yeah, we'll be together.
Yeah, no worries.
So can you, do you know if you'll be the first visually impaired person to complete the
I don't know.
double?
I don't know. I will have to ask around Achilles.
Because it's only been going for 3 years. I think this is our third year. So
Third year.
I have a feeling that you might be the first visually impaired person to complete the double.
Well, there you go.
So I think Tony's our stats man. He'll work all this out for us. Sorry, Tony,
Tony's
I put you on the spot there, didn't I? Yes. But yes, no, we're looking forward to catching up at Gold Coast without doubt. I won't put too much pressure on either of you two now.
Oh, now I better actually bloody finish it now, just to be the first.
That's right. We can drag each other over the finish lines.
Tony, you can ask the last question, mate.
Oh, I've got bar 6 coming up, so that's okay, Tim, I will. So we've talked a little bit about Achilles and the Achilles runners and becoming guides for vision impaired runners and others. How does someone sign up if they were interested? And secondly, I guess, is there any specific training that they need to do to become an Achilles guide runner?
Yeah. So the best thing you can do is just jump on the internet, type in Achilles International. That'll take you to the main Achilles page. So wherever you are in the world, you can look up your local chapter. For those of you in Australia, you can type in Achilles International, and we've got Queensland, so Brizzy, Sydney, Canberra, Melbourne, and I think we're getting a new chapter in Perth, and also in Geelong. So Geelong's hopefully starting too. So that's pretty exciting. We've got some training videos that you can look up on our webpage, but also we have regular training. And you can just contact Achilles and they'll sort of tell you when the regular training is. But also, just at Parkrun, I've often just trained up people on the day. So, if I will often put a shout out on a Parkrun Facebook page. So, just keep an eye out on your local Facebook page of your parkruns. And yeah, it's for Parkrun, it's fantastic. You get a volunteer credit and a running credit. Bonus. Yeah, so really good, and it's really easy, and yeah, it sounds really daunting and sounds really hard, but it's not. Unless it's a really technical course, and then we did guide training the other day at Newport Lakes in Victoria, and it would have to be one of the most technical courses. Like now we're going downhill and we're going to turn a corner, and you've got a duck. It's like, it was these poor new guides. I was like, oh my god! If you can guide here, you can guide anywhere.
Wow.
So just on that.
Sorry,
Tara.
Yep. I was just going to say the bonuses as well. You get to meet some really nice people. You get to interact with people that you might not normally have interacted with because you're probably too shy or not knowing how to approach somebody because you're like, oh, am I going to be offending them by saying anything? But
always just say g'day. Just say hi.
You're a normal person. Just say hi.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's the best thing you can do to anyone is just say hi.
Yeah, don't treat you like you're a different person. You're absolutely 100%. I have met you. I know you 100%. You're very.
I'm hiding my second head.
No, so just quickly to wrap it up there. So with the trainers or the guide runners, I noticed that it must be the preference of the runner themselves, but some are tethered at the waist. Some have got hand grips that they hold a handle between each other. Some are actually, a bit more less tethered and are just using voice commands. It really depends on the vision impaired runner and what they require, I guess. And so therefore, as a guide runner, it's learning the nuances of how to guide a particular runner, I guess.
That's right.
Yep.
And so basically the less sight you have, the more feedback you need. So generally the more rigid the tether needs to be.
Yep.
So that's why white canes and guide dog harnesses are rigid, because you get really good feedback. So I've got some low vision, so I can use a waist tether because, I really just sort of need to sort of be kept in contact with my guide, and I can still sort of keep them in the frame of my vision. when they're running. So the best thing that you can do is speak, and that's the thing that often people just have to get used to is like as you're going, like often guides will go out on their normal runs and just start running as if they're guiding someone. So, oh, we're turning left up here, we're turning right. Oh yeah, we're coming to a ramp in 3, 2, 1. And, just practicing as you go, because no matter what level of vision I have, you can never tell me too much. I can always tell you to tone it down, but I'm often that person that thinks I can see something and then till I can't, and suddenly I run into something that I should have seen. So
like Tara did last week, where she ran into the path in front of her on the ground.
Yeah. Well, sometimes the road just comes to rise up to meet you, and you just don't expect it. So
seriously, like, why would they put a concrete path where my face was?
I know, it's rude, just rude.
Absolutely. Tony, let's hand it over to you for your fast tip. That's enough about me and my face. So,
Claudia, really simple segment. I am going to ask you 6 very quick questions, and hopefully you give us 6 very quick answers, and that sort of somehow ends everything in terms of the interview. So you ready to go?
No, I don't want this to end.
Okay. So podcasts or music?
Music.
Or neither.
I've told you how bad I am at podcasts. Yeah.
Best running advice ever given to you?
Just start.
What advice would you give to someone just starting out?
Keep with it. Just keep going. When you think it's bad, you'll always be much better than what you think. Like, the times where I've just had a horrible run, the next run will just be brilliant, and I'll just be like, whoa, I just didn't even see that coming. So yeah, just stick with it.
Excellent. Uphill or downhill?
Oh, down all the way.
Yeah.
But you got to climb up to get down. So
yeah,
that's it.
Gels or blocks?
Neither. I've got little sour lollies. They're my thing.
And your favorite shoes to run in?
Currently Hoka Rockets.
Ooh,
bit different.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That's your fast 6. Well done.
Oh, that was easy.
Yeah.
And I think that's the first time we've had those shoes. So well done. Out of the 48 episodes, I don't think we've had one person that has said those shoes. So well done. Before we finish up, we always get a tip from Tim. Now, I can't guarantee that it's going to be... Anyway, let's go for it, Tim.
There's a lot of people that like these tips, Tara. So they're better than the old jokes.
Cult classics.
Cult classic Tim jokes or
there
tips.
You go. All right. So my tip this week is about being respectful to other runners around you. We've heard from Claudia about how challenging it can be when you're vision impaired, and particularly running in packs of runners. So my tip is very similar to what Claudia said earlier on. Be alert to others around you at all times. Yes, it can be particularly challenging in those last few kilometers of a marathon when everything turns to shit, essentially. But be mindful, especially of those around you that are disabled or vision impaired. Exactly as Claudia said, use bone conducting headphones rather than in-ear buds to help you hear directions and shout-outs from other runners and also the course marshals. Depending where you are in the world, and it's a contentious one, in Australia, we run on the left and we pass on the right. In many other parts of the world, you run on the right and you pass on the left. Be mindful of where you are. I think it's a bit confusing in London. They sort of run on the left and the right and pass on the left and the right, and nobody really knows which is the right side on the left side. But be mindful of the country you're in. Make sure you understand the passing etiquette. Because it helps people like Claudia when they are running through to make sure that they've got clear space in front of them. And the last thing is always provide encouragement to runners as they pass, and always shout out a thankful comment to the guide runners, because after all, they're giving up their run for everybody, and particularly Claudia to be able to allow Claudia to get her goals. So
go Achilles.
Yeah. Yeah, and at times those guide runners are doing it as tough, if not tougher, than the runner they're helping. They may not always be showing it, but they may be getting an injury or whatever, and they don't want to forego a good time for the runner that they're assisting. So they'll keep pushing through that, and they'll struggle, but they'll get the runner there to the home most of the time, I would say. But yeah, be mindful and don't forget to encourage them as well. That's my tip.
Excellent. That's a great tip, Tim. What do you reckon, Claudia? Good tips?
Fantastic. Yes.
That was pre-written on the guide notes before I actually had the interview with you. So there you go. We're aligned.
Let's hand it over to Tony, because poor Tony has had nothing to say on this episode, I feel like. What's up
He's
next?
had a lot. He's had a lot.
I've said enough, Tara, but next week we're going to talk about one of your favourite topics at the moment, rest and recovery. And my favourite topic always. It's an important part of any marathon training program or strategy, and it's often the bit that we miss. We often ramp up our kilometers and we keep going and we keep going and we keep going until something breaks. So rest and recovery is really, really important. We're going to talk about what rest weeks look like for us, as well as explain the type of things that we do to recover. And Tara, we're not talking about sitting at the pub on a Sunday afternoon having a couple of beers, although it has been known to recover us very, very well, I must say. Anyway, as usual, it's going to be another great episode and definitely not one to be missed.
Excellent. Thanks, Tony. Yeah, well, I do like my Sunday afternoon beers, but anyway, let's go back to the running episodes. But that wraps up our episode for tonight. But before we finish, I'd really like to say a big thank you to you, Claudia, for giving up your time, sharing your inspirational story. I know that our listeners are going to be extremely impressed by listening to you, as we all are as well, because you're not doing it the same way that the rest of us are. You've actually got a lot of other challenges that you face, and we are in awe of you because we know how hard running a marathon is at the best of times. I think you're amazing, so well done. We've had a lot of fun chatting with you, and we can't wait to catch up with you when you're here on the Gold Coast. I know that you post frequently on the iFit page for the for the Australia iFit page as well. So if you've got any other social media handles that you want to promote, or is that pretty much where you sort of are?
I'm on Instagram, I think, but I don't think I post very much. I thought it was set up to do it automatically from Facebook, but maybe not. But I'm also on Facebook, but I'm a pretty private person, really. But I post a lot on Achilles Melbourne. So I do that, and on the official iFit page every now and then. But yeah, just thank you all for having me today. I've had a ball because this running caper is very new to me. So
you're doing an absolutely brilliant job for somebody who's new at this sport anyway. So thank you very much. Well, that wraps up the episode. So
Thanks,
video,
Claudia.
Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. It's been awesome.
Video of this episode, preferably if you don't watch it with my face, that would be much preferred.
Well, mine, that's fine too.
Great big bruise on yours. Can we just listen on Spotify and the audio on the Apple and Amazon? You can watch it on YouTube, but really it's if you like this episode, please like it and write a shout out to Claudia as well. Remember, every step forward is a victory. Lace up, hit the road, and we'll catch you on the next episode of The Flying Runner. Until then, happy running.
Happy running.